Welcome to the Social Bee podcast with your host, Louise Brogan. Every week, Louise will be bringing you a podcast all about women entrepreneurs, talking about their challenges, their goals, and inspiring you to either start your own business or grow the business you have. Visit www.socialbeeni.com to join our community and pick up some lovely freebies to start marketing your business online today.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Social Bee podcast. And today I am delighted to bring to you a fellow podcaster. So Dr. Laura Steele is a lecturer in Business, Society and Ethics at Queen's University here in Belfast and has a podcast called the Good Business Podcast. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Louise. I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking with you this morning.
No, I'm really interested in how our conversation is going to go today because you're not my usual type of guest, Laura.
And as well, when you say I'm a podcaster, it's something that I'm definitely very new to. I have nowhere near the back catalogue that you've developed at the Social Bee. So as much as anything, I'm keen to hopefully get some hints and tips from you about how to progress with the podcast.
Excellent. Well, Laura, if we kind of go back to the start. So you're my first lecturer, actually, on the podcast as well. So how did you get into lecturing and why did you choose the topics that you're in?
Goodness, well, it's interesting because you'd said to me before in an email when we were arranging it that you wanted to briefly discuss my career. And it seems almost strange to me to consider my series of jobs a career because one of the things for certain is that it hasn't really been linear. I started off after I left school, I decided that I wanted to study law. So I did a degree in law and politics and then went on and did a master's in corporate governance and public policy. And I applied to go to the Institute at Queen's to either study to be a solicitor or barrister, but unfortunately I didn't get in. I didn't make the cut in that particular year. And I think if I had actually got through, my life probably would have been quite different. I would have probably sort of continued to go down the legal route, but instead I had to find a different pathway. So I went out to work for a while. I worked for a number of different sort of businesses around Belfast. And then just over time, I started to miss academia and applied to go back and do a PhD. So I was accepted into Ulster in 2007 and I started a PhD on social networks. Although I should clarify that it was face-to-face social networks rather than social media. Because whenever I say social networks nowadays, everybody assumes that it's the likes of Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so forth. And I did go on to do a little bit of work around that several years down the line. But what I was looking at was how SME owner managers, so small to medium-sized owner managers, could use their real-life social networks to improve their business performance.
Oh.
Yes, so that was what I was interested in. So I spoke with, I think it was well over 50 successful SME owner managers from around Northern Ireland, really just to try and get a picture about how they formed those networks, what they got out of them, and the different challenges and opportunities that they presented.
Oh, Laura, we're going to have to talk about all of this. I'm so interested.
Well, it's interesting social network. I personally wouldn't say that I am the strongest networker. It's something that I've had to sort of develop over the years. I'm not the type of person that can necessarily sell myself particularly well. The way that I find around that, for anybody who does struggle with networking, is I try and come at it from the position of, what can I learn from the other person? How can I help them out? And sometimes that can be through helping them forge connections. So regularly I might meet somebody and they say, I'm trying to find out a little bit more about this, or I need to meet somebody who is an expert in a particular area. And so I can view that as a way to try and connect people together. But for somebody who has a PhD in social networking, it's something that I personally find quite challenging at times.
But I think what you're saying there is the perfect way to network. It's not really about you and what you... Because you see people going to networking events. Because I do go to a lot of business networking events. I was at the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce just this week. And I met some very nice people. And what I did was I asked them what they did and what they were up to, rather than going over and trying to sell myself and my services. Because at the end of the day, whenever somebody meets you, people like to be heard for a start. But if I just went up to them and said, "Hi, I'm Louise, and this is what I do, and can I, if you want any help with your social media training, here's my card," the likelihood of them getting in touch with me would be quite slim, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And you can learn so much by just speaking. You can learn so much by speaking to people. You can get ideas. You can find ways to collaborate. So I think that's definitely the best approach.
Yes, I love collaboration. I don't know if you've heard my favourite saying before, Laura, but it's a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, and I would have totally the same philosophy on things, that we can do more sort of together through collaboration than we could ever do on our own.
Yes, absolutely. Which actually, interestingly, a side note into you are coming along to the social media boot camp at the end of May, and that is a collaboration between myself and Ashley Watson. So, I could have put on a conference. I kind of realise now that if I hired a team, I could probably put on a conference on my own, but it would not be as much fun.
No.
Or as, I wouldn't say it's easy or simple, because it's neither of those things, but definitely having a co-host makes such a massive difference. I'm so glad that we're doing it together.
Yeah, and just the amount of ideas that you'll generate, and the fact that you're bringing in so many, I've just said this morning, all the different people that are coming onto the panel as well, and just the diversity of different backgrounds and ideas. I think it's going to make it something really special.
Yes, it is going to be brilliant. I can't wait. So, Laura, tell me about business, society and ethics.
So how I ended up going down that route was, so finished my PhD and wasn't quite sure what to do next. So I worked in Stormont for around 2 years. Half of that time.
So people who are listening who aren't from Northern Ireland, what is Stormont?
So it was Northern Ireland Assembly. So it was our parliament within Northern Ireland. So it's the devolved parliament that operates in Northern Ireland, or rather I should say currently has not been operating for the last years. But after I finished my PhD, that's where I ended up. I had a wonderful time there. I spent around a year working in sort of legislation and on bills. So in terms of developing sort of new laws that were to come into force in Northern Ireland. And then the other half of that time was working with politicians or people that were interested in running for office, in terms of developing their skills. So that could be around communication, financial management, or really any of the suite of skills that somebody needs to be an effective public representative.
Oh wow, that's really so. If you were elected into office, you would have somebody there to support you in how to communicate your message and also how to manage the finances.
Yes, well, management of finances, that was particularly interesting, because whenever you're elected into those particular roles, whether it be as a council member or an MLA, all of a sudden you have responsibility for looking at public finances. So making sure that public money is spent in a way that is effective, and that it's accounted for, and that it's used appropriately. And that's a really big undertaking for people. So certainly one of the courses that we ran through the organisation, so it's called Politics Plus. It's a non-profit organisation that operates out of the Northern Ireland Assembly and is supported by it, was just making sure that people had those skills to do their job effectively. But also you can have incredibly effective politicians who maybe just are not used to having to communicate their particular ideas. So standing up in front of a chamber full of other MLAs. So it's just really developing those skills to help them be more effective in their roles.
That's excellent.
It was a really interesting job to have, and in particular, we were really keen to work with people who were underrepresented in politics, so younger people, women, persons with disabilities, and so forth, to try and give them the skills and the confidence to put themselves forward. And we had quite a degree of success with that. And so, and certainly the last election, there were more women putting themselves forward and ultimately being elected. So it'll be interesting when the Assembly gets up and running. Hopefully we'll see more diversity in terms of our MLAs. I think that can only be a good thing for Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It'd be very interesting. One of the things that's coming through to me, Laura, as you speak, and I know that you're a lecturer at Queen's, so you're talking to a lot of young people who are looking out into starting employment.
Yes.
And I think the message that I would love them to get from our conversation is that actually you don't just leave, go into one job, and that's you for life. I think there's so many amazing opportunities there.
Yes, absolutely. I would say those days, we actually are really keen to stress that to our students, that the days of spending 40 plus years in one organisation have largely gone. Mm-hmm. So I think that what we're trying to do is equip our students with, to use that word again, skills, transferable skills, because probably they will have not only several jobs in their life, but they might have several careers as well. Yeah. And so we want them to be proactive. We want them to be able to go into a range of different careers over the course of their working life. And actually that's probably far more interesting than doing the same job day in, day out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is actually very interesting is as well, we've got about 15 staff coming from Ulster University to the conference at the end of the month. And I think a lot of that is about, it's all connected into this whole idea of, connecting with your students and your social networking, and where are these young people and how do we connect with them? Like, would you find that a lot of your students would be connecting with, like, I know you have a LinkedIn profile, for example. Do you find that students are starting to use LinkedIn or not?
Increasingly so, actually. So I am more than happy to always connect with students on LinkedIn. It's actually lovely as well to see what they go on and do, that otherwise you might not hear from them again. Whereas now I can see with the ones that I'm connected with, I can see when they get new jobs or they get a promotion, and it's really lovely. But I would say, well, probably a factor in that will be that we are a business school. Yes. And so LinkedIn will be a natural pathway for many of our students in terms of joining. Mm-hmm. But actually, I'm seeing students from a range of different disciplines also join LinkedIn. Mm. I was speaking to students recently about how in the US in particular, LinkedIn is really heavily targeting students from quite a young age with a that they will really track their whole careers using LinkedIn. So from before they even apply to go to university, right through their studies, from graduation and then on into their first job. So I think LinkedIn is really looking to capture that market, so that your CV will be sort of developed and updated for life. But personally, I really like LinkedIn at the minute. I think that it's quite a positive space. I do too. I think that, so one of the things we did for the conference is I put out a request on LinkedIn looking for some really marketing students, thinking this would be a brilliant thing to stick on your CV, that you were helping out at a social media conference. And it was quite funny because initially there wasn't much response at all. And then I started to get some forward-thinking students actually sent me a couple of emails. So I've got my volunteers now, but it was almost like it was too slow to pick up traction on LinkedIn, because now I'm getting lots of people asking me, can they come and help? And I'm like, no, you need to be in there first to get your name in the hat. But I think it's one of the panel who's speaking at our event, a guy called Jamie, is, I think Jamie is on placement year. So he is a student and he is very forward thinking. He's very active on LinkedIn. I think as a result, he's speaking at 6 events this year alone in Northern Ireland. But it just shows how important it is, and it's an increasingly competitive marketplace for people graduating at the moment. So somebody like Jamie, who is putting himself out there, who is taking risks, I think it's going to pay dividends for him in the long term.
Yeah, I definitely think so. So tell me a little bit about your own podcast, Laura.
Yes, so I started in Queen's. Back in 2014, I started teaching business ethics in Queen's on our MBA program. So it was generally to people who were senior members of staff within organisations, perhaps own their own businesses, and we're doing our MBA programme, and that led in, I was doing that part-time while working. I think I was in the Northern Ireland Assembly at that stage. And so then I became full-time in June 2017, so I'm in Queen's full-time just over 2 years. In addition to my role as a lecturer, where I obviously teach modules, do some research,